Hello, and welcome to the We Are All Human podcast. This is our third installment of the season on life purpose, and I am so excited to have these two guests with me today. These are very special people in my life. I met them at church, and this is Birch and Diana Cannon. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll sit back and listen to their words of wisdom today. Who wants to go first?
Okay. I'm Diana. I think that you probably realize that. Birch and I have been married for 58 years, and we had 5 children, 5 boys, and most of the time I was a stay-at-home mom. I did have some jobs over the years, back and forth, but most of the time I was able to stay home.
That's lovely.
I'm Birch. I'm from Atlanta originally. I went to Clemson. I've lived in South Carolina for, I guess, most of my life. And as Diana said, we've been married for 58 years. We lived in Virginia and Connecticut and Georgia and mostly in South Carolina.
Thank you for coming. I'm thrilled that you agreed to do this. Sometimes like when I approach people, if I approach people, sometimes they approach me, but if I approach them, they're either gung ho or heck no. So I'm glad that you all decided to do it. So from what I gather, you probably moved around for your job, right?
Mostly, yes.
Since we're talking about life purpose, I've been talking, with you individually on different things, and so we're in a Sunday school class, like a class before the actual church service starts. And I know that Birch and Diana are rich in wisdom and lots of life experience, but listening to them in the Sunday school class, you can just tell there's a lot of depth there. And I really wanted to showcase that. Since we're talking about life purpose and calling, what do you all think that means to you when you hear that?
You and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I had seen a series that Steve Hartman from CBS did. It's called Kindness 101. It's a series for children, and he does the series with his children. And I happened to notice a segment on purpose. And his daughter had come up with a definition of purpose, and it seemed to strike a chord with me and to be right on point. Let me read what she said. The definition of purpose is the things that you do for other people that are unique to you. And to me, that means that, the God-given talents that you have that you're able to share with others and share in the world. So to me, that's purpose. Have you got anything?
Well, I read the question, and I can remember in that transitional period between when you're just becoming independent, like when you graduate from college and you realize, oh my God, now I'm on my own. Right in that period, you start wondering as a young person, what am I here for? What am I going to do? Not what is my job going to be, but I guess what is my purpose from a philosophy standpoint? And you start fretting over that. A lot of people don't admit it, but they encounter that. Then after you get through the transitional period, you step on that conveyor belt of life, and things start happening, and you kind of forget that you're striving towards a purpose. The purpose just starts coming to you, and and to me, it's how do you react to things that are presented to you, especially crises, and how do you react to other people, and how do you interact with other people? And I think the definition you just read is kind of on target. If you're not caring about other people and not trying to help other people, And I don't mean just helping somebody who's sick or who's down, but just being friendly, just saying hello to somebody, or realizing that somebody's having difficulty getting the groceries in their car and walking over and helping. Um, this to me is part of your purpose.
And I kind of think that purpose shifts a bit during your lifetime.
It
When
does.
you're um, in school, your purpose is to get through and do the best that you can while you're there. When you're first married, it's building a marriage. When you're raising children, your focus and your purpose has got to be on raising those children to be the best people that they can be. And so I think your purpose kind of shifts a bit during your lifetime.
Well, your focus shifts.
Yeah, your focus shifts. Yeah,
But
not necessarily your whole purpose, but
Yeah, there is I guess I would call him a philosopher. His name's Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you've heard of him. But he was basically talking about the concept that there's really, I know this sounds bleak, but I mean, trust me on this. Like, there's no future really. Like, you only have right now. Like, you're not back there where you were. Like, you only have your present moment to really make, whatever your difference is, and live in that moment, because right now was the future of yesterday. Does that make sense? So you're not living in what's coming, and you're not living or what already came. You're living right now. So like you're saying, you look around you and see what's going on, see how you can help and bring that kindness. So that sounds like what you're saying. So what did so how did that look? One thing I wanted to say is, Birch, you were saying like you start thinking about your purpose when you're really young. I don't really think I thought that. I think, it depends on, I guess, someone's, how they grow up, but I was more just determined to I guess be self-supporting. That was my main thing. And it depends, like on the childhood. And if you feel like you have to be thrust into that, that may be because, whatever happened as a child. But I was definitely thinking about how to get to point A to point B. I wasn't thinking about probably like the bigger picture of what I can provide everyone or what I can do in life. Just like I was thinking more like, what is my job? And my job was my identity. But now that I have worked many years and, my kids are a little older, now I feel like I am definitely in that place where I'm thinking about that now. So I think maybe either I'm a late bloomer or I guess people sort of focus on that at different times. What did you, so what was it like for you all? What did you feel like your purpose was early on, if that's something that you thought about early on?
early on being, I
Like,
mean, we're late.
when you're,
Yeah.
well, you mentioned like you sort of like struggled with that, maybe, or maybe when you're younger, you struggle with that as you're going into school and you figure out what you want to do. What did you think you wanted to do back then? What did you think your purpose was?
well, I feel like you did, that you're so busy trying to do the everyday things and meet situations that are in your face every day, um, whether it's children or job or whatever, that you don't have time to think about that. You're just trying to make it to the next hour, the next day, whatever, next week, and you don't really have the time or the energy to be self-aware and have philosophical conversations with yourself. So I think I was, it's probably been later in life for me too. So
Yeah.
Well, I may have misspoke. I didn't really think about this all of my youth. I was just referring to that period of time when you're moving from, um, if you went to college or if you were in the military. If you think back about it, somebody's telling you just about everything that you're going to do, and your major decisions are where am I going to eat, um, or am I gonna get up early and go to class, or am I gonna sleep in this time? And when you get to the end of that, and it's time to uh, really go out on your own, that was the point I was talking about. Is who am I? What am I? Am I making the right choices career wise? In my case, I took a job in the north, and I've had lived my whole life in the south. And so as I'm driving through New York City in a little MG in a snowstorm, I'm wondering, you know, what kind of fool am I? So but that quickly came to an end when reality set in that you've got to earn money to get food, to pay for rent, etc. So uh, and after that, I've never really thought much about it because it's always been reacting to situations that have been presented to me.
Gotcha.
Sometimes I think people fret too much about what is my purpose rather than just acting and reacting to things that are presented to them. And sometimes I think people let their purpose go by because they're thinking too much about it instead of doing something about it.
Ooh, that's hitting home. Thank you. That sounds like something Chisholm would say. You're thinking too much about it. You're overthinking. That's what I've heard
Chisholm,
my
Chisholm is a good philosopher.
he is. He was like, make a difference. I wrote something the other day for my Substack, and I publish on that once a week, and it was something I'd seen, I guess, on social media, and I was like, I'm so tired of seeing that stuff. People are just so doomsday type stuff, and it's just kind of gets old. It's an old hat a bit. And I asked him, I said, does that stuff bother you? And he said, yeah. He said it can. I said, well, how do you deal with it? Besides just don't look at it. And he said, I mean, just make a difference. I mean, you don't have to, you don't have to overthink about that. Just make a difference. So that's kind of what I think, I'm gathering from what you're saying is, you just have the right now. And so whatever's in front of you, you can't worry about or think about sort of like too hard on what I guess some people try to understand life instead of just living it. And you need a little bit of
Yeah, I think
both.
you're right, and that can easily develop into inertia, and it and
Yes.
then and then you're trying to find the best place in life. Well, there is no best place. There are a lot of good places, so you just need to go seek them out.
Yeah. So, Diana, what do you think? Later on, did you ever sort of like once your children are a little bit older, did you sort of think about your purpose?
I'm not sure that I can say that I, specifically sat down and thought about it and tried to discern what a specific purpose is. I think I've tried to find out or try to think about the things that I know that I'm good at, the things that um, come easily for me, or the things that I enjoy doing and feel good about doing. So, but to come up with a specific purpose, I'm not sure that I haven't. Basically till we started talking about it, that I'm just not sure that I really ever took that time to have that self awareness or make that decision.
So, one thing that you and I, Diana, have been discussing, in little snippets at church whenever we have a chance, and then we've also discussed it in our Sunday school class, is the purpose of community, and just how society has sort of moved away from that community structure into an individualistic sort of lifestyle. So, what part do you think community plays in our purpose?
I think it plays a huge part, especially if we take the definition of doing things for others that are the things that you are unique to you, that you are good at, that you care about, that you're passionate about. Um, you can't do that in a vacuum.
True.
Um, and I think that we just need to realize what we can do for others, and what we're good at doing for others. So
You all told a great story about what it was like whenever you were young parents raising a family and just having close friends, a little community around you to like help parent your kids and help, be another set of eyes if you needed another set. Um,
yeah,
can you,
we needed probably 100 sets of extra eyes to keep out for our watch out for our crowd. So um, yeah, I was thinking about this earlier today, that we've always been involved in having friends and people around us that were both older and younger than we are. And we've been very fortunate. I don't know how that originally came about, but it may be just that we were interested in people, and people around us. But um, we've always had friends that were a generation or half a generation older than we are, and younger also. So that has all come together to make a community for us. And when our children were young, we were very fortunate to live in a community, a neighborhood that consisted of all kinds of people, all kinds of ages, all kinds of occupations. And so we all looked out for one another. And we had these friends that were older and had older children. And so we could talk to them and say, oh, one of our kids did this week, and we just can't believe that they did this. And they could come to us and say, don't worry about it. That's something that'll just pass, and it's not a big deal, no big deal. And on the other hand, we'd say something in an offhand way that one of the kids had done, and they said, "Oh, well, maybe you better watch out for that. Maybe that crowd of kids that they're around is not the best group for them to be involved with." So it's been extremely helpful to us to have other people to talk to.
Yeah, it has been. And I would say instead of relating it to your purpose, it's more related to your life journey. And you know, as Diana mentioned, your 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 focus kind of changes in different stages of your life. And it, but living in this community, it really kind of showed us that there is no book that's available about raising children. Um,
unfortunately,
and most of the ones that you run across that you think might be pretty good, if you dig into it, you'll find out that the author doesn't have any children. And if you've got multiple children of the same sex, you find out that they're all different. A lot of people have a girl and a boy, and they think, well, they're different because they're different sexes. Well, that's true, but the same sexes are very different. They have different personalities, they have different emotions, they have different desires. Um, so how you're dealing with this, it is very difficult on a day-to-day basis. But having that community that, like Diana said, some of the older people can come in and say, here's what to watch out for. Here's things that are going to happen. Don't worry about this. You better worry about that. That was invaluable. And of course, sometimes it's shocking. We lived in Virginia for a few years, and we were in a good neighborhood there. It was mostly people older than us, but one of our neighbors said, we had two boys at the time, and she told us that you'll realize that you've got boys when the cops knock on your door. Well, our oldest son was like 4 years old then, and we're horrified. Like the cops are not going to knock on our door. Well, guess what? We found
Oh,
out they were
wow.
boys. So,
Yes, it was
you know, it's
one night when Birch was out of town, and I got a call from the police that two of our boys had climbed out a window and walked probably 2 miles to a 7-Eleven. It was probably 2 in the morning,
Oh, my
and I
gosh.
had no idea they were there. So we did get phone calls and knocks on the door.
so
So
when you have children, things happen, and the first reaction is, I'm the only person that's ever happened to. My children are the only ones that have ever done that. So having a community around you that can say, no, you're not the only one.
it's a reassurance.
Is really good to have. I was just saying, years and years ago, it was the family that was your community because they didn't move that much. Then we started migrating and moving around the country, and your family was miles and miles away in a lot of cases. So you had to rely on other people. Um, and we were fortunate enough to be in a period where there were no iPhones, there were no personal computers. There was more personal communication. Um, Now, being a parent is a great challenge, and I think technology has started eroding some of that community because it's easier to stay inside and work on your iPad or your iPhone or your personal computer than it is to go outside and interact with the neighbors. And
Yeah.
I, I think the onus is on the individual to go do that rather than take the easy route.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And guilty. Because sometimes it's, just easier, especially if you are a little bit more introverted. It's a lot easier to just, stay behind, a phone or something and interact when you feel like interacting and then just leave it. And, I think, one thing about having your community support you is you have to tell them what's going on. They can't support you. They can't give you advice if you don't
Yeah,
tell them.
yeah.
If you don't say
Exactly.
anything. And one thing that you said about being isolated, essentially that's kind of what you're saying is like you think you're the only person that's dealing with it. And if you don't really say anything, then that it does feel like that because you're isolating yourself. But when you open yourself up and then actually tell other people what's going on, no matter if it's embarrassing or what, isolation, what that does is make you feel like you have to come up with all these solutions on your own with things that you're just dealing with. But if you open yourself up into community, then you have a world of solutions available to you that you didn't have
Well,
before.
I can give it an example. We have someone we know that is single, but in her professional life has got to make some decisions for other people, and she does it in isolation. She makes decisions in isolation because she doesn't have a spouse or friends or whatever to bounce ideas off and to come to a decision, not just on her own, but having some input from other people, and knowing what other people might think about a situation. Her own situation is so limited because she doesn't have those interactions with other people, um, that sometimes the decisions are not the best ones that she ultimately makes.
That's a good
One of the
point.
big advantages of being in a community of varied ages and generations, and especially people older than you, uh, is that they've been through the wars that you're going through. And even if you don't reach out to them, even if you don't share the fact that you're going through a certain crises, they know that you're going through it
Yeah.
because they've been through it.
Hmm.
And sometimes you'll get a knock on the door and somebody comes in and says, I just want to have a cup of coffee with you. Well, why did you come? That they know that you're going through something. And it's incumbent on the person that's getting that support to turn around and take it to the younger people that they're involved with. So you need to go knock on the door sometimes when you know you've got a neighbor that's going through a situation or a crisis. It's like when you're around young children or kids, and you know they're having a bad day. It could be because they got in a fight with their mom before they went to church, or they got in a fight with one of their siblings. But just reaching out and touching them and saying, "Hey, how are you doing? Um, Glad to see you today," really turns things around a lot of times. And it's not these big interactions that you have; it's the little 30-second ones that really count.
It's so true. I know it always takes me aback. I mean, I can be at church and it's expected that you're going to interact with people, but if somebody puts their hand on my shoulder, it will definitely take me by surprise. I mean, I don't hate it, but it just, I'm not, I guess, expecting it or something. But it's always, just the physical touch. There's something about it. There's the energy from one person to another, and the encouragement that sort of like goes along with that in an unspoken way that means a lot. And I think both of you have, reached out when you could tell that things were going a little crazy for us, especially like with the kids or something. Like you'll, try to talk to one of the kids that are, maybe misbehaving or whatever. And I know that y'all tried to talk to us at different times, and it's meant a lot. It really does. And, I do think that that's, a really cool thing that you can also in turn, like you said, pay it forward and offer that to someone else.
Well, I
Um,
think it's important. We enjoy people. I am much more introverted than Birch. I'm not one who enjoys, cocktail party conversation. It's just not
yeah,
me. Birch is much more outgoing that way, but I think one of one of my strengths is being a listener, and so I can I can kind of judge when people are maybe having a tough time, and so just being there, just making an opening approach statement kind of thing, or talking to somebody will often open people up, and all of a sudden you're having a very deep, intense conversation that you didn't realize that you
yeah.
needed and they needed. So
No, that's a good point. Do you feel like Birch has probably opened you up in that way to be, bring you in more into social environments?
I admire that he has um, that ease with people and conversation with people. He, like I say, he is much more apt to interact with people than I am. But
Well, Diana majored in drama in college, and as I learned with a lot of people that are in that area, that field, there are a lot of introverts, and they can do incredible things on a stage, but when it comes to interacting with people face to face, they
Yeah.
don't do it as well. And I'm kind of the opposite. I would I would hate to get on a stage. I would be petrified. But in a crowd, I'm fine. So, I guess it's a genetic thing.
What if you don't like either one?
It's probably still genetic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, so, Birch, how do you think, since I asked Diana, it's only fair, how do you think Diana has had an impact on you throughout your life?
How she's had an effect on me?
What impact is she had on you? Like what kind of gifts has she given to
Well,
you that
actually, we had
expanded?
a household of 6 boys in Diana, and so she raised 6 children, I guess.
and I'm still raising one.
Uh, I think from early on we decided that we were going to be a team, and most of what we've done together, and the influence has been a lot of give and take. Um, we made some decisions on raising children that um, I I don't know if they were good or bad, but it was our decisions, and one of our decisions was that we're not going to let the children divide us and get one to say yes and the other one to say no. And it was going to be we would do things together with the children, and our ideas about discipline were pretty much the same. Of course, there were some fine tuning that had to be done on everything. But when we got married, it was um, an interesting challenge that we had. Diana was from the north. I'm from the south. Her family's from the north. Mine's from the south. Um, so there was some friction from the get go, and the without going into a lot of detail, we ended up getting married by the bishop in Atlanta, the Episcopal bishop, and then we moved to Connecticut, and were far away from either family, either side. So it was basically the two of us uh, against the world, and it was either we're going to do it together or we're not going to survive. And so I think from that we learned a lot of how to depend on each other.
And we did decide that the word divorce was not in our dictionary. That was from the very, very beginning, before we were even married. That
And
was just not an
the
option.
way we reinforced that with children was that whoever leaves has to take the children with them.
Made it pretty easy. We're staying together forever then. No, I love that. You both do seem to present as very much a team. You're very equally yoked intellectually, it seems like, and both, empathetically, in helping and making a difference. And it is a joy to be around you too.
We are very different people, and we don't always agree. We A
I
lot of
saw that
times
when we were
we
setting
don't
up
agree.
for the podcast.
um, but we work it out. We talk it over and come to an agreement, and we have very rarely had arguments over the years. I mean, 58 years worth of marriage, and the big, huge disagreements have been very few.
That's really amazing. So getting back to the idea of community and how we've, you've already sort of addressed how we've sort of gotten into a situation where we became individualistic. How, like, what do you think we can do about that? I mean, just put the phones down. I mean, what is it really just that simple? Like, how can we cultivate the communities again and start relying on each other?
That's a really difficult question.
Yeah.
Have you got some answers?
Well, it there are no silver bullets. It's easy to blame technology for destroying our community, but there are a lot more factors than just technology. There's always been change. The I think some of the negatives that are influencing the lack of community are the screen devices, the watches, the iPhones, the iPads, and it's not the devices; it's the parents not disciplining the children on the use of those devices. Discipline's hard work, and it's a lot easier not to discipline than it is to discipline. So most people, I mean, human nature is you take the easy route instead of the difficult one. Most of our families now are mom and dad both are working, or it's single parent environments, and so you don't have that much time with your children. And the time you do have, you're busy doing things like cooking meals, cleaning house, etc.
Right.
So discipline takes away from those activities or the time for those activities. So again, it's not only difficult; it interferes with other things. But I think to reclaim community, people are going to need to want to reclaim it, and they're going to need to learn how to trust each other again.
Yeah.
I think there's a tremendous lack of trust among our society or within our society, and the why is that? I don't know.
That
But
was
if
my
you go
next
to the
question.
grocery store, you go to any department store, any place out, and just observe what's going on. Everybody's in their own zone, and they are not courteous to each other. They're not paying attention to other people's children, um, which to me is very foreign because at my age, um, I'm thinking back when I was growing up. You were taught to respect your adults and to obey the adults. So I can remember as a child many, many times people that my parents wouldn't have inside the house were correcting me and telling me to stop doing something that was wrong, and I would listen to them. And they felt comfortable in telling me that as a child. And it was just the way I grew up. And I grew up in Atlanta, so it was not in a rural area that you would think, well, that's the way people are. Um, but the adults had this unwritten responsibility to look out for children. Well, somewhere along the line, that got lost. And again, if you go to the grocery store and you watch how many people ignore a child that's fixing to get in trouble, a child is fixing to climb up the cans on the aisle and pull them all down. They just walk by. They don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So um, again, I think it needs to go back to people. People need to want to have the community. They need to go outside their own doors and knock on their neighbors' doors and say, "Who are you?" You know, I saw something interesting the other day. It was a list of of things that 90-something-year-olds said. What would you advise people to do if you could tell them? And one of them was don't expect people to be interested in you unless you're interested in them. If you're interested in them, more than likely they're going to turn around and be interested in you. So
Mhm.
take the first step.
And I don't think that we can say that there is um, lack of total community because I see it all the time. Um, we have it. I think it at the church in our our Sunday school class, within the church itself as a whole, and I see it in our youngest son is living in Charleston in a community that is very much like the one that we raised our children in. The kids are in and out of each other's houses all the time. They support one another tremendously. Our son was very sick in November, and the neighbors just came in and took over and supported the family in spots.
Right,
and
right.
um, and I think if we can somehow expand that kind of sense of community, we would all be much better off.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm getting older, I'm definitely seeing, the usefulness of community and what role that really plays. I can't say that I've really thought about it too much whenever I was younger. And, we really didn't live in a community. And so that probably has a lot to do with it. We lived in a rural area, and you just, I could go see my grandparents and my aunts and uncles. Like, I'd walk to their house, but it was through a pasture. Like, there was no cul-de-sac or anything like that. And we went to church, and that was it. Like, there was no other social things that we did. So I guess relying on people that you live near is somewhat foreign of a concept for me. But we live in a little cul-de-sac neighborhood, and lived here for 20 years, and we definitely, I would say, have a pretty functioning community here, of all ages. We have people, with younger children that do go between our house and, that house, and, older people who are, by themselves. Their kids live away, and check in on each other, and, make sure we're all good. And, it is very heartwarming to have that. So I do see the utility of it, and will make an effort to put myself in community a little more than I already do. um, So, are there any other what were you going to say, Birch? I feel like you want to say
Well, I
something.
was just going to say that friends are extremely important, and that's a different kind of community. They may not live close to you, but we've learned along the way, making friends through church, through neighbors, through work, through various activities, and you have acquaintances and you have friends. Um, Friends are invaluable, and we've learned that in many different ways.
We are so fortunate. We have friends that we have had since the time we were married and before we were married, and we have friends all over the world. Um, we have moved; they have moved. We were able to teach school for a while in Thailand, so we have friends in Thailand. We have friends who we met in Thailand who live in Europe. Um, so we have been very fortunate to have so many friends. When one of our sons got married, and they were making up guest list, and the bride, of course, was saying how many people we could invite to a wedding, and we said, well, we've got these friends, and the bride's mom said, how do you have so many friends? How do you know so many people? And we just have been very, very fortunate.
Maintain that connection over time too.
Mm-hmm. And it may be just a
Intentionality.
Christmas card once a year or a Christmas newsletter once a year, but we have been able to do that.
Well, this has been a rich conversation, and I've really appreciated it. And I guess we can wrap up with if you have any advice or words that you want to part with that, concerning either purpose or community or anything you want to say.
Well, advice is very easy to give. It's very difficult to receive it. So, with that in mind, I'll be brief, but just some of the things that I guess we've learned over the years. One with children, I've kind of narrowed down what do you really need to focus on with children as a parent, and my philosophy is it boils down to LSD, not the drug, although sometimes you wish you could get it. But it's love. Children need unconditional love, and when I say children, um, I'm talking about from birth until you're no longer here. They're still your children. Um, you don't necessarily have to like them. Not all the time. You'll learn that you won't like your children all the time, but you've got to give them unconditional love. Um, Security. Children have got to have security. Um, they don't need things. They need to be secure. And discipline. And a lot of people go, "Oh, horrors! You can't beat your children." Well, discipline doesn't mean beating your children. Discipline means setting boundaries based on their age and what they're capable of doing. Um, because your job as a parent is to develop an independent, mature human being, and you only have them for a limited number of years in order to do that. Um, so they've got to have the discipline to understand that there are boundaries in life, and there are consequences if you go beyond those boundaries. And those boundaries, of course, change during your lifetime. But as a parent, I think that's what you need to focus on.
That's very good advice, and definitely how what I'm seeing play out, for us as parents is it's been hard to hold the line, especially with the teenagers. I say that plural, but I'm really just meaning but it's been tough, and what I think we have done, I guess, okay so far is being united front and being a team, and both of us have the same approach and I guess vision about parenthood, and so it's made it easier. Definitely is easier when you both have the same ideas about what should be done on discipline. Definitely it's been hard, but I think ultimately even the stronger personalities really will come to respect what you're saying if you're consistent as a parent with the discipline and in your message to them, what's expected from them. But I do appreciate it. And I do think, I talked about this in a previous episode, talking about like the definition of a true elder. And I'm not saying that because of your age. I'm saying that because of, it seems like the first half of your life, you learned all those lessons, and then now you're able to richly impart those to people who are sort of in the thick of things. And I really do appreciate it because my grandparents are no longer alive. And so I do seem to like really crave that the older, wiser point of view. That is something I've definitely noticed since they've, passed. And I appreciate it.
Well, thank
And
you.
I know that whoever's listening will, definitely get some, you know, snippets of
Well,
advice from you and hopefully put them into place. I'm one of them.
we're a team. I'm older and she's wiser.
No, I think both of you are fantastic, and I really do. I appreciate it.
Well, you're quite welcome.
Thank you,
If you could,
Katie.